Good to go, Jared? Okay, we'll call today's meeting to order. And we do have a quorum at this point, several online. So pretty full agenda, so I'll kind of push us along, but if there's any questions, comments, please interrupt or feel free to. At this point, we need to have a motion to approve the agenda. Hopefully you've all read it and saw that it's lengthy.
So moved. Kathy Heisey Callahan.
Do we have a second?
Second, Chuck Theobald, Colorado Springs.
Okay, have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Consent items, and we need the approval of the minutes from last time. I personally was not here, but we need a motion to approve those.
I move to approve Maddie Gullickson, Colorado Springs.
Second, Teresa Cheek at large.
Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? None opposed, so minutes are approved. Jared, is anyone online with public comments?
Mr. Chair, I do not believe there's anyone online who is not identified as a CAC member or a presenter, but I will go ahead and just say that if there's anyone who I missed and don't recognize, to please use the raise hand function to let us know. In the meantime, while we're allowing people to find that function, I will let the committee know that we did not receive any advance requests for public comment, and we did not receive any written public comment that we would have submitted to the committee in advance of this meeting. As I've gone through that, I still see no hands raised, so I think we can move forward from public comment at your discretion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the room have any comments? And I hear none. I do have a comment. As most of you know, I lost my mom to cancer a couple of months ago, and I want to thank all of you that reached out and sent your wishes and comments. I appreciate those, so thank you very much. Okay, moving on, action items, transportation adoption plan. I think you're ready to do that. And I know you're walking up here, but when you get here, this is a continuation of what we've had presented, just the finalizing of it right now.
Yeah, thanks for that background, Mr. Chair. That's right.
Okay.
Let me just share my screen here real quick. I've got a short little presentation because as we mentioned, we've kind of gone through this before. So just to give a little background, actually start the slideshow here. Okay. So is this sharing successfully?
Yes.
Are you seeing the PowerPoint here? Okay. Just to give a little background, we started in fall of 2023 with hiring the Olson engineering firm to lead the project. They've done a great job, got a lot of good experience in active transportation. We're in the home stretch now. We've got a final draft. All of our public outreach has been completed. We're hoping to get your recommendation of the plan today. TAC recommended it last month, earlier this month, sorry, and we're hoping to go to our policy board for formal adoption in November. That's our aspiration. So just a little background in terms of where the regional plan fits, sort of vis-a-vis other plans and endeavors in the area. Doesn't replace or supersede any local efforts. Keep going. Was it not shown?
We see it.
That's on our screen, Jared. If John can see it, we're in good shape. So No, well, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Okay, continue.
It's a higher level regional plan that doesn't supersede or replace local efforts. It's more aimed at collecting, identifying opportunities, weaknesses, possibilities, synergies from a larger regional perspective. Um, I've got this part memorized, so I'll just keep going. It doesn't really constrain what local jurisdictions can do. So if local jurisdiction wants to build a bike lane where this doesn't recommend that, they're free to do it. And it doesn't stop them from doing anything, doesn't force them from doing anything. It just sort of collects data, gathers information, and helps with funding efforts. So that's really where it's designed to fit. We had a very extensive stakeholder effort. Uh, we did a lot of review of existing plans, member jurisdiction plans, other plans, not really looking to reinvent the wheel. We did a lot of interviews with member governments, meeting with member governments and staff multiple times in a lot of cases, because it's a little tough to get a handle on all of the exact data for active transportation facilities and corridors and preferences. A lot of folks are mostly focused on roads. So we met multiple times where we could, community organizations and schools and colleges. We actually did 2 rounds of public involvement, 2 surveys, and had a project website with a sign-up option throughout the project. So folks could follow along with the project and receive regular updates who were interested in doing that. We've met with the CAC, I think it was February and July of this year, to give updates. Met with the TAC on multiple occasions and did an in-depth TAC workshop in April, and also got some good feedback from our board. So we feel pretty good about the stakeholder process. We feel like it's been pretty robust. Getting to really the heart of the content. So we're not going to go through all the content of the plan, of course, just because we've done it before and just want to get to the heart of it here. This is the regional vision network for regional routes. These are off-street trails. If you were to see a map of all of the existing and planned and proposed trails, it would be a lot more cluttered than this, 10 times, 100 times more cluttered than this, like a plate of spaghetti. But this is sort of a distillation and a reduction of all those to what we thought for different reasons were the key regional facilities. The facilities where we thought, they really tie together jurisdictions, regional destinations, and key corridors. So, and the themes for these, the way they were selected and the sort of the topics that we wanted to push going forward were connectivity. So just making sure that the regional network trails connect with each other. Continuity, meaning that the trail that you're on doesn't go from a multi-use trail to a single track to something else and back again. So you know what kind of an active transportation vehicle you want to use. Amenities and maintenance, and then just clarity of wayfinding, knowing where you're going, knowing that you're still on the same trail, knowing where you're going to end up, things like that. So these were the main themes, and there was a lot of stakeholder and public process just around this map on its own. We wanted to make sure we got it right and it reflected all of our regional interests and our member government plans and priorities. Along with that, we wanted to go one step further. Our other core product, this was tough to get to, but the sort of the tippy top regional priorities for the region. And doing something like this can cause a lot of brain damage because you can only pick a few. But the reason we wanted to do it, we wanted to get there, is because we were told by CDOT that when they're having their funding prioritizations, where there's funds for either our engineering region, Southwest Colorado, or some kind of statewide pool of funding, if we have identified these clear top priorities, these projects will tend to do well in those prioritization processes. They're more likely to rise to the top. So if there's a region like us, or we have our clear top priorities like this, and some other region that doesn't have that together, we're going to come out winners in that. So we wanted to make sure we had this. Some other products that are in the plan, and I know these are going to look kind of small. I just wanted to give you a flavor of what they look like and what's available in there. There's an in-depth safety analysis. So this just sort of a flash of a crash map, bike and pedestrian crashes. There's a really in-depth data-driven crash analysis in the plan if you want to look deeper into that. There's an active transportation sort of demand density analysis. So based on a lot of data that was collected, this is where, based on population density, distance, land uses, things like that, where people would have a propensity to want to use active transportation. And again, it's totally non-binding. Nobody has to do anything with it, but we thought it would be good information, just for awareness and also again for funding pursuits. You know, if you want to show that your project is justified, things like that. There's a little bit of information about recommended cross sections. What should a regional trail look like? How wide should it be? What surface should it be? So there's more about that in there. And then again, apologies, I know this is small, but it's just to give you an idea. Some information about implementation. So some examples on here, reserve right of way for future roadway corridors, identify gaps, develop an amenities brochure, adopt common language, create a wayfinding committee and plan, things like that. So there's a little bit of implementation stuff in there. A few themes that came out of our public process. We had a lot of public process, sort of two pushes, one early in the plan, one closer to the end that just wrapped up, and then two survey efforts. Some positive themes came out of that is that there's a lot of support for doing this kind of planning regionally. There's support for encouraging active transportation, and there was a lot of concern for safety across the board. There was some advocacy for designing streets, and again, safe routes. So that was all positive. Some of the more negative leaning themes, a lot of complaints about bike lanes and trails not being connected, ending abruptly. Safety again, people wanted better e-bike regulation. Not looking to get rid of e-bikes, but they want a little bit better regulated. That was sort of the slant of the comments. And then again, not having enough signage and wayfinding, people just kind of getting lost. Those were some of the more negative themes. And with that, just end on a graphic of our nice vision map here. Happy to take any questions or comments. I know I went a little bit fast, but I didn't want to do the whole thing again because we've done it before. With any questions or comments, I would love to ask for your formal recommendation for adoption of the active transportation plan, if you're willing.
Well, thank you, Jason. And you've cleaned it up since July and it looks very well.
Oh, thank you.
Refined. I like it.
We worked hard on it.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, just a heads up online, Maddie Gullickson does have her hand raised.
Okay, I see that now. Maddie, go ahead, please. Is her mic working?
Sorry, does that work better?
Sounds better, yes.
That's when you turn it on. No, I just want to thank you so much for just really amazing work on this report, and really want to applaud the efforts to get such effective stakeholder engagement. When I was just reviewing it again, the one question that I did just have as a broader, kind of a broader approach, and it's on, I believe, page 24 of the report, I think 34 of the packet. But it talks about how engaging the development community and the private development community on trying to get these active transportation considerations at more of like maybe an introductory part of the development discussions. And so my broader question was just how you see that starting to play out, and how we can maybe be advocates for that kind of conversation to be happening in different communities, because that there was just an element where some of it felt a little bit like it's a chicken and the egg kind of thing, right? We can advocate for these things, but if it gets built before those considerations get taken into effect, then we're kind of stuck at the same spot. So so again, I guess my question really is just where you see that particular recommendation having any kind of really stickiness. And if there's things that we can kind of continue those conversations in our local jurisdictions around.
Yeah, thanks for the question and the kind words. The last active transportation plan was adopted in 2015, and quite a bit's changed since then. So we're glad to have an update in 2024, almost 10 years later. I think because we're a regional organization, I think that advocacy would have to happen mostly at the local level. And what we could do at the regional level is sort of try to provide a template for that and to try to get some uniformity across the region. That could be something that a regional committee might tackle. It could be something that we address maybe in our long range transportation plan. It could be something that we talk about more in depth outside of this plan at the region or in the next plan. I know there's not a lot about it in here, and it would have to be led at the local level. But sorry, I don't have a more specific answer, but it is a conversation that we could continue at the regional level, specifically about how there could be some uniformity across the region and how we do it, some guidance, try to find a consensus about what approaches are acceptable, maybe make some recommendations. But where the rubber hits the road would definitely be at the local jurisdiction level. So hopefully that's helpful.
That is, thank you. And I don't, Mr. Chair, I don't know if that's something that the CAC could possibly consider moving forward, but I just wonder if that's something that we could revisit at some point, just because I do think that's something that seems like it would be a pretty fundamental part of really making this have some real traction throughout the region.
Okay, that will be noted. Are you finished, Maddie, with your questions?
Yes, I'm finished. Thank you so much.
Okay, didn't want to cut you off. Okay,
No,
any
you're
other
good. Thank you.
questions? Anyone else? If not, is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I was still thinking about how I was going to form this. When you talk about wayfinding, is that just for bikes and pedestrians? Is it, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity with all the different jurisdictions involved to integrate that in a larger way. And I know that there's a proposal for a committee and some standards, but what's the thinking as you're moving that forward?
It's a good question. Yeah, it would be for bicycle, pedestrian, and then micro mobility, scooters, and anything that would be using these multi-use regional trails. But it's going to be important, especially because we're looking at the regional level. We'd like them to be. I mean, it would be best if the wayfinding signage was similar across the region, so that you're not getting one type of sign. You know, the size, the coloring, the symbology, and the names are all different, as you cross a jurisdictional boundary. So it'll be important to have some uniformity in the future. So I think that's one of the, I would say, priority recommendations of this.
And also that the signs indicate waypoints outside of each local jurisdiction, that within Colorado Springs, how far is it to the Air Force Academy along this path, or whatever that looks like, that we're thinking very broadly about waypoints that would be interesting to the users of the multimodal trails.
That's an interesting suggestion. Yeah. I love seeing that stuff downtown when I'm traveling. So, yeah, that's a great suggestion. We can make a note of that for when we're starting up those efforts, or when we're kicking off the next one of these, which won't be as long as it's been since last time. But thanks for the comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's what you mean. Anyone else? If not, do we have a motion for approval?
Chuck Theobald from Colorado Springs. I move that the CAC approve the active transportation plan.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Wiley Foster, El Paso County, I'll second.
Okay. Any additional comments, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And there are none. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the questions and comments very much.
Thank you. At this time, if there's no objections, I would like to alter our schedule. We have Colonel Fisher, a guest with us. Do you? You're sure? Okay, we don't want to infringe on your time. Okay, well, in that case, I won't ask you to come early. Okay, unified planning. Danelle, are you doing that one?
I am, sir. So you might remember we brought this document to you a few months ago. The Transportation Department here at PPACG functions as the metropolitan planning organization for the region, which is basically like a regional transportation planning department. This particular document outlines how we're going to spend the federal funding that comes to us. And so we held a public comment period after we brought it to you all. That ended on October 13th. We did receive a couple of comments. They're actually in the appendix in the back, but they weren't comments that warranted changes to this particular document. We did make a couple of non-substantive changes based on comments that we received from FHWA to provide a couple of notes that clarified the funding and such things. But essentially, the document is the same as it was brought to you previously. So we're really looking for a motion to recommend approval and happy to answer any questions you may have on that.
Any questions? And I see none online, correct, Jared? Okay. I can't believe there's no questions for you. Okay, if there are no questions, do we have a motion?
I move recommendation of the Unified Planning Work Program.
Okay, is there a second?
Roland Rainey at large, I second.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Danelle. You're so thorough that no one wanted to comment.
It's not the most exciting document, so
Well,
thank you.
I won't say any. That's what I said. She presented everything so well that it's thorough. Okay. Informational items, CDOT, Condition and System of Performance Targeting System. Is that you again?
I will kick this off, and then we have some folks joining us online to give us some additional information.
Oh, great.
So we actually have two information items here that talk about performance measures and targets. They're a little bit separate. They're different folks at CDOT. So the first one is our infrastructure condition and system performance, and then the second one will be safety related. So CDOT develops these performance targets for the state as a whole. And for the infrastructure condition and system performance, those are done every 2 years. Our CDOT folks are here to discuss the newest performance targets. But I just wanted to give a little bit of background information before we get into that. I wanted to note that these targets are not intended to be aspirational. So for example, I would love to go and say, yeah, our goal is to have every bridge in the state in good condition. But really the intent of these are to be data driven based on trends. And that's really the intent of FHWA for these targets. As a state, we need to show that we're either meeting the targets or showing significant progress toward the targets. And if we're not, it can actually have some impact on how our funding is spent. And then in addition to that, because we are the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we will bring this back to you in a future month. As PPACG, we either need to support the state's targets or develop our own as staff. In general, historically, we have supported the state's targets. So I just wanted to give you that kind of background before we get into the presentation. And I believe Jacob Kirschner is going to lead you through the actual targets today.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Kirschner. I'm the Performance Program Manager at the Colorado Department of Transportation. Thank you for the introduction and overview there, Danielle. If you're able to go to the next slide there, please. And apologies on that, pulling up the slides on my side. So before diving into the details, do want to provide some quick background on the national performance measures. Danielle kind of covered this. The Infrastructure and Investment Job Act requires each state to set targets for transportation and report on those progress. CDOT and the MPOs establish data-driven 2 and 4 year targets. I will be covering the infrastructure and system performance targets, and then my colleague David Swanka will be covering the safety targets following this presentation. Throughout September, we worked closely with subject matter experts to update and recommend adjusted targets, which we did submit to the Federal Highway Administration on October 1st, which did establish new targets for our infrastructure condition targets. Next slide, please. And so we did not establish any, or we did not adjust any new targets other than our bridges in good condition target. And next slide, please. This is kind of covered in your overview. So the specific targets under review are, we are adjusting our bridges in good condition target from 36% to 38.5%. All our other targets, such as those for the interstate and non-interstate pavement and system reliability, will remain the same. This adjustment is supported by our latest performance data and reflects FHW guidance to establish data-driven targets. Next slide, please. Here we focused on the proposed adjustment for the targets regarding bridges in good condition. When we set the original target of 36% in 2022, it was based on the best available data at the time. However, since then, we have seen a positive trend in bridges in good condition, allowing us to confidently raise that target to 38.5%. This recommendation is based on forecasts from our asset investment management system, which uses detailed infrastructure data and projections to help guide decisions. It's important to note that while we are adjusting the good condition target, the target for bridges in poor condition will remain the same. Next slide, please. This graph here illustrates the condition of bridges across Colorado's national highway system since 2015. As you can see, we've experienced a decline in the percentage of bridges in good condition. This is primarily due to an aging inventory of midlife and older bridges. However, through targeted investments and preventative maintenance, we have been able to keep the number of bridges in poor condition below 4%. Moving forward, we do expect to see a gradual improvement in the number of bridges in good condition, which is why we are proposing the new target of 38.5%. Next slide, please. Focusing on just the Pikes Peak area, bridge conditions are closely aligned with the statewide trends. Again, the decline in bridges in good condition is largely due to an aging inventory of midlife and older bridges. This trend reflects CDOT's lifecycle planning, preserving good and fair bridges while addressing poor bridges. Bridges in poor condition remain at a low level, highlighting effective maintenance efforts. Next slide, please. To conclude, we are asking for the PPACG CAC support in adopting the state's adjusted target for bridges in good condition. This will ensure that the region aligns with CDOT's broader performance goals, which in turn supports Colorado's infrastructure needs. The PPACG Board of Directors would need to take action through a formal resolution, and we encourage you to support this adjustment. That's all I have for my portion of the presentation today, and happy to answer any questions now regarding bridge, or wait until David's done with safety.
Any questions online, Jared? Oh, Gary's got one here.
Yeah, Gary Sugart at large. Can you tell me comparable statistics for the states surrounding Colorado, like Wyoming, Kansas, New Mexico, Utah, what their values are?
Off the top of my head, I do not have that information available. We do report that, so we develop a ranking of the state's report. I'd be happy to send that information your way, and it gives an overview of how all 50 states rank towards all of our infrastructure condition targets. So it does include pavement and bridge.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yep.
if you could send that to Danelle, she'll get it out to us.
Okay, perfect.
And just so that I'm clear, we're not voting on anything today. We're just getting information only, correct?
Correct. Yes, we'll bring it back as an action item.
Okay. Any other questions? No, we can move on to Dave then. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the next action, or for the next information item, similarly, David Swanka is going to give a presentation, and the only caveat I would say again is that our targets are not aspirational, and these safety targets are actually set annually. So we'll bring this back to you again next year.
All right, I'll start out by introducing myself. Hello, everyone. This is David Swanka. I'm with CDOT. I'm at the headquarters Traffic Safety and Engineering Branch. And every year, my group is tasked with, and we coordinate with the Office of Transportation Safety here at CDOT and also the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment to establish national safety performance targets that we submit to the Federal Highway Administration for our annual highway safety improvement report, which is submitted at the end of August. And we do this, we calculate these measures in April. So we use a 10-year average of crash data for fatalities and serious injuries, and you can see the trend of fatalities here. And we do a time forecast to look at setting our targets for calendar year 25, as well as fatalities, fatality rates, serious injury rates, and also non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And non-motorized just means that it's a vehicle collision with either a pedestrian or bicyclist. And you can see here the trend over the last 10 years has generally things have been going up. There was a decrease in 2023, and looking at some more recent numbers that we have for 2024, there is an expected slight decrease for this year as well, which is good news. It is comparable right now to 2021 numbers, so we may be around 700 or so. It's kind of hard to say, but certainly all those numbers kind of go into calculating the trend. Next slide, please. So looking at serious injuries over the years, it's actually been pretty stable up until the last couple of years, where we've seen a pretty high spike in the last couple of years. The serious injury crash data does lag more than the fatalities, so it's harder to project where we might be this year. I would suspect it'll be lower than 2023, but it'll probably be above the 21 and at least at the 21 and 22 levels. So it is still very high. And let's go to the next slide to look at the measures themselves to give this all to context. So when we set targets for 2025, it is a 5-year average, 5-year rolling average. So these include all the numbers from 2021, 2022, 23, 24, and 25. And you see here the 5 different measures. We have fatalities, fatality rates per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, serious injuries, serious injury rates also per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and also the non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And the targets we did set for 2025 are what you see here: 740 fatalities, fatality rate of 1.363, 3,640 serious injuries with a rate of 6.701, and 659 non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. And to the right there, we see the performance we had just in the single year of calendar year 2023 for comparison. But again, it's a trend calculation. So as much as we'd like to set something very low and very aspirational, this is what our trend analysis tells us what to expect, and where we try to show significant progress. Next slide, please. So again, the goal here, and again, right now it's informational. After we submit our numbers to Federal Highways Administration, the MPOs have 180 days to either establish their own target or submit their own. And that 180 days would be the end of February. I'm not sure exactly what day. It could be like the 27th or something like that, but generally it's just like the end of February. And that's really the task at hand for the MPOs. And one last slide we have was one that Danelle provided for the relative performance for the Pikes Peak area. And there's a lot of similarities in these trends. So you see over those 10 years where fatalities had increased over time and a decrease in 23 and most likely a decrease in 2024. And then similar numbers for serious injuries where we see that higher spike in the last 3 years, but maybe a projected slight decrease for 2024, just to give perspective. But certainly a lot of similarities and trends there. It's generally not too much different from the statewide from what I could tell from just the surface level of looking up these numbers. But with that, I'll open it up to any questions or comments about these target settings.
David, do these numbers strictly follow the state federal roads, or does it get into local or rural county roads, or
Any public road. So
any
that could
public
be a
road?
state,
Okay,
yep, any state highway, any city road, any county road.
okay. Just want to be clear. Any, Miley, please.
Miley Foster, El Paso County. It seems weird to, set a target for fatalities. And so I think what we're really doing is saying this is what the expected fatalities will be. So it's kind of an expected outcome. So then explain to me how this now is going to be used. So now we have this data of what we think is going to happen, and then what?
Yeah, so once we establish a target, and this happens every year, so we're doing this for 2025. In sometime in 2026, FHWA will review the performance of each state against their targets to see if they've made significant progress. And if they haven't made progress in 4 out of the 5 categories, like Danelle was saying earlier, that it has certain implications on what flexibility we have with our safety funding, and also it requires the state to generate like additional reports and plans, like a highway safety improvement implementation plan for the next fiscal year. So it is really just a check. And as for the funding implications, it doesn't take away funding from safety. It just ensures that wherever federal funding we get from federal highways goes directly to safety, because with federal funding, there's always an option to flex a certain percentage of funding out towards other areas, like say or resurfacing or operations or stuff like that. But if we don't meet targets, then the safety funding should stay in the safety programs, which would typically happen anyways. It's just for these review purposes, that's just the formality that we'd have to stick to and be evaluated for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Chuck Theobald, Colorado Springs. I apologize up front for the geeky engineering nature of what I'm going to ask about here. When I look at raw number statistics like this, starting with the first slide, Colorado traffic fatalities by calendar year, I always have a hard time knowing anything about actions that have been taken in order to impact the numbers that we're seeing reported here. For example, I can look at 2018 to 2019 and say, well, that was COVID, and so there were fewer people driving, and so of course we would expect 2019 to be lower, and then as more people started driving again, 2020 starts the trend to go back up. But then I look at the next slide, Colorado traffic serious injuries by calendar year, and in fact 2019 declined, and then 2020 declined more for serious injuries, and then it jumped dramatically back up in 2021. My point, I think, is I don't know if there are statistics statistical methods that you've applied to these numbers that just aren't shown on this chart. For example, I would be looking for control limits or something like that that would tell me where we have statistical variation with random events rather than having just that would indicate to you that some change that you made had an actual impact on the numbers that we're seeing rather than that it's just random variation because we have a uh, random process that says that sometimes there are accidents and sometimes the accidents are more severe than other accidents. I know that driver behavior has an enormous impact on numbers like this, but I think what I'm asking is what other statistical tests or analysis do you perform on these numbers in order to understand where changes that CDOT or local jurisdictions make actually have impact on whether we see an increase or a decrease in fatalities and serious accidents?
Yeah, those are all excellent points and question. And what you see here is an aggregate. So there's certainly that a lot goes into these numbers. When you start breaking it down and looking at fatalities related to pedestrians and bicyclists or motorcyclists or intersection related, you get a little bit of different story, and you get their own trends, and you get their own factors that affect those trends. And certainly CDOT is just one of several agencies that have a role in this. Like Colorado State Patrol has the enforcement piece, and they evaluate how many tickets they issue for speeding and how that affects any crashes or fatalities related to speeding. And um, for CDOT, we look at, uh, for instance, roadway departure crashes and how our efforts in providing widening shoulders or rumble strips, or when we look at intersections, any intersections we upgrade, say from a signalized intersection to a roundabout, we see how those affect the numbers, and most of those are microscopic, and it's difficult sometimes to see where those piecemeal efforts affect the entire trend. There's less in the way of something that affects everything. That's more like a policy level. So I would say like some of the more recent legislation that has opened up automated enforcement might have like a more direct effect on the statewide numbers, for instance, and but like other legislation like the motorcycle filtering law will probably just affect the motorcycle numbers and such like that. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's a lot of what we look at when we break these things down. And certainly when we do our strategic highway safety plans and stuff, we do break stuff out and establish emphasis areas and try to disaggregate it to connect it more with direct strategies, so we could actually see a direct impact of what we do from year to year.
That was a very good response, actually, to the question that I asked. I would still, and I know that it would take some education on the part of people reading the graphs, but I still would find it useful to have control limits upper and lower on a graph like this to show where there's been a significant change instead of a random change.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, anyone else? Anyone online, Jared? I don't see any. Okay. All right. Thank you, David. And Danelle, do you have the next one too?
I do. Thank you, David and Jacob, for being here. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
For the next informational item, as you all know, we are working on our new long-range transportation plan for the region, which will be the 2050 LRTP. If you move on to the next slide, please, Jared. You've all seen this slide before. We've brought it to you a couple of times, but I wanted to include it in case anyone had any kind of questions or was new to the process. But this just kind of shows the overview of what the LRTP is and why we do it. Next slide, please, Jared. This is kind of where we are in the LRTP process. Those green or those red words there in that green box. We're focused right now on doing finishing up some of the modeling, specifically related to the new greenhouse gas rulemaking that was enacted by the state legislation. In the meantime, we are also working to get that draft document up and running. And to that end, we know that because this is our first time through the state GHG process and that reduction process, we haven't quite known how to understand the timeline of that a little bit. So we're anticipating that this is taking a little bit longer than we thought it might. So in an effort to try to mitigate some of that impact to the overall timeline, we really wanted to bring some of the initial sections of the document to our committees, just so you can see them, to make sure you have ample time to review them. We did include the first 6 sections of the LRTP in the packet materials this month. Please don't feel like you have to read all of them right away. We do have time between now and then, but those sections are in bold here on your screen, so you can kind of see how the LRTP is structured. And what we're showing you right now is mostly more of the existing conditions kind of pieces. The regional forecast gets a little bit into the population and demographics projections and that piece. But if you have comments, if you've looked at it already and have comments, or if you'd like to get comments to me, if you have questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to John. We are more than happy to take feedback. I will caution you right now, I know that there's errors in it already. It's not a public-facing document at this point, so just be aware of that. But we will certainly be bringing the rest of the document to you in the coming months, and we will bring you the full document, of course, before we release it for public comment. The next steps in the process will be to release for public comment. We'll have a formal 30-day period, and we will have open houses before bringing it back for that final adoption. So just wanted to let everybody know where we are and get some of that information out to you so that we can get some feedback in. Happy to take any comments now, or again, please email me if you have any questions.
I'm not seeing any.
Thank you so much.
And you're still up.
I do. I get to talk a lot today. So as you all know, the wonderful CAC officers that we have had this year were also our officers last year. Per our bylaws, we can only have folks in the same officer seat for 2 consecutive years. So we just wanted to let everybody know that we will be looking for nominations at next month's meeting. If the CAC, in previous years, we've just done nominations and had the vote at the actual CAC meeting. If for any reason you would prefer to have a nomination committee and do it that way, we can, but we haven't found a need to do that in the past few years. So again, if you have concerns, please comment or send me a note, let me know. But otherwise, we'll look at doing some nominations next month.
And you get to go one more time.
And one more time. So for the holiday meetings for November and December, we want to be mindful of everyone's time, your schedules. We want to make sure that we are as efficient as we can and have as much participation as we can. So right now, our November CAC meeting is scheduled for the day before Thanksgiving. And also our December scheduled meeting falls on Christmas Day. Obviously, we're off that day. But what I would like to do is send out a poll with a couple of questions, perhaps some alternate days, so that we can hopefully get the next meeting scheduled in a way that makes sense for everyone. In the past, we have done some meetings just virtual only, if that enables people to participate more. We have also, in some years, actually skipped the December meeting. I do want everybody to be aware that we are anticipating having transportation items in November and December. So if you were to skip a meeting, we would still send you the materials and have you let us know if there's questions, but we would still move forward with the board process. But I just wanted to let you know there's some options there. And hopefully we can find a solution that works best for everyone.
Would there be an issue having them a week early?
I don't think so from a staff perspective. It's really just making sure that we have,
You know, when we get into holiday weeks, people travel and,
right.
you know, even if we push it back a day or two or
Mhm.
virtual in an airport's kind of awkward.
It's hard. So we have to make sure that the room and Jared are available and kind of work that out. But
If you could do that before you send the poll out, I think that'd
Absolutely.
be beneficial.
yes, we
If-
will do that.
No,
Perfect.
No, correct. The room is not available the week before. The third Wednesday there is a standing meeting at
Okay.
3 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, we could do remote the week before.
We could also investigate potentially some other days or times. I'm not sure
If you could do that.
if folks would be available during a different time of day.
I just
or-
know holiday weeks and people traveling, we may have a hard time getting a quorum.
It's tough.
Okay.
So please look for that in your email. And if you
Okay.
don't receive it, let me know because it's probably stuck in junk email land.
Okay. Well, I think we'll let you off the hook.
All right, thank you.
Colonel Fisher, are you ready now?
So I want to first off, thank everybody for affording me the opportunity to talk to you today. I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you for your leadership to the Pikes Peak region. I've been now a resident again in Colorado Springs. I've been a resident several times, but again since 2017. This is the first time I've been to one of these. More bike lanes as a cyclist, expand north as a north resident, please. So I truly do thank you for your leadership. I stand before you today as the last Space Wing commander in the Department of Defense. I say that because in the Space Force, as we all know, we've moved away from the wing construct. I remain as a Space Wing commander because I'm a reservist. Okay, we have inside of Colorado Springs, predominantly, we have a 1,400 person reserve wing. Most of those people are constituency of inside the Colorado Springs. I stand before you as the last one because we are in fact standing down the wing. We are inactivating the wing. And this is part of the last year's National Defense Authorization Act, you know, the budget that Congress releases every year, hopefully at a particular time, mostly not. We are standing down the wing. We are inactivating the wing, and my reserve citizen airmen, my 1,400 reserve citizen airmen, will be transitioning to Space Force, either in a full or part-time capacity over the next course of the next couple of years, or remaining in the Air Force Reserve Command, and then moving to a different duty title, a different job title, and likely in a different location. So what I'm here today to talk to you today about, you don't have any reports to read, so that should be good. Have a little mini video, that should be good. But it's an informational purpose meeting only, right? If you are so compelled, there are some ways for the community writ large to get involved, and I'll talk you through that a little bit today. But first and foremost, it is a significant emotional event for upwards of 1,400 people who most of which reside in the Pikes Peak region. So that if nothing else, take away from that, that your residents inside the Pikes Peak region will be going through a fairly significant change. So as you see on the board, 1,400 person living locally, we provide, our mission is to provide combat-ready forces to the entire U.S. Space Force. We have 11 different mission areas. We do have three different areas that we support. So Schriever, Peterson, constituted as one, Space-Based Delta 1. We also have a contingent that works up in Aurora, inside of Buckley. That's actually where I came from today. And then we have another contingent out at Vandenberg in the central coast of California. You see what our wing in economic impact is, and we are, like I said, we are standing down. So we're inactivating over the course of the next couple of years. The way this works is the full-time Space Force is ready to accept any particular people who want to become full-time Guardians again. So this will be going back, in a lot of cases, going back to active duty. And then going back to the needs of the Space Force. Wherever the Space Force sends them, they will go. After that is allowed to transition, the Space Force will take our part-time force. We have about 1,000 part-time currently reserve citizen airmen who are potentially moving to Space Force. In that capacity, they will likely stay inside the Pikes Peak region if they currently reside here. But again, that's also at the needs of the Space Force. This is a different way of doing business for the Department of Defense. It's this combined reserve, part-time and full-time force in a single component service. It's a different way of doing business. It's potentially very exciting and very groundbreaking in how we can actually employ the force in a full and part-time capacity. But that said, because our wing is inactivated, and our wing has a heritage that goes back 110 years to World War I, we are really focused on how to not only support those people who are moving over or moving positions, but also figure out a way to celebrate and retain that heritage and lineage that goes back to people throwing, quite literally, grenades out of biplanes in World War II over France. So we're looking to do that. So we're going to quick show, if this works, we're going to show a quick video. So next slide. I am joined today by our historian, Dr. Courtney Short, who has put together a number of different videos on kind of the lineage of our wing. So if we can play this, I hope it works, kind of give you kind of set the stage.
Welcome to History Shorts. I'm Courtney Short, and today I'm snuggled in with a cup of tea. Back when the 310th Space Wing was the 310th Bombardment Wing in the 1950s, we spent a lot of time in England. Let me tell you that story. The dropping of the atomic bombs in 1945 ushered in a new era, the nuclear age, and with it, the Cold War, as the United States was pitted against the Soviet Union in the pursuit of global stability. The national mission became containing communism and deterring enemy aggression by posing a viable nuclear threat. The newly formed United States Air Force and Strategic Air Command had the important mission of delivering nuclear weapons in a retaliatory second strike capability should deterrence fail. Central to the mission was the use of overseas bases. The B-47s forward deployed to such places as England, Morocco, and the Arctic. I am inside a B-47, one of the few, if not the only B-47s in the state of Colorado, at the Pueblo Wisebroad Aircraft Museum. Now, our 310th Bombardment Wing and their own B-47s were at the strategic forefront of this mission. And our 310th Airmen really took seriously their important role in preventing nuclear warfare. Initially through 90-day deployments to Upper Hayford and RAF Greenham Common in England in 1955 and 1956, the 310th Bombardment Wing brought over their entire wing and started maintaining a constant state of readiness. By 1958, the wing expanded its deterrence mission as a part of Reflex Action, an operation that dispersed the U.S. bomber fleet across an increased number of bases and adopted a 3-week rotation program for the U.S. bomber detachments. The 310th Bombardment Wing returned to RAF Greenham Common and later RAF Mildenhall, but this time with less aircraft. But they stood ready on the flight line, fully fueled, armed with nuclear weapons, and ready to be airborne within 15 minutes. Just like the 310th Bombardment Wing before it, today the 310th Space Wing has a cutting-edge mission that is a national priority. Our 310th Space Wing forces are combat ready to fight tonight and tomorrow in the space domain, a domain that critically impacts and enables operations on land, at sea, and in the air.
We have a series of videos, that QRC code you have there. Also, I have it on my business card if you want one. Can link you to those YouTube videos. It's something we take pride in. It's award-winning, from the Air Force level, award-winning a series of presentations that we do to help celebrate this heritage. But moving forward, we have a number of various opportunities for that we will be helping to celebrate and again retain that heritage, culminating in a wing gala, a heritage gala in the March timeframe. So the public will be invited to a lot of these types of events, and we would encourage those inside of your own constituencies, as much involvement as possible. Also, if we have a private organization who comes forward and wants to sponsor us, our gala will work as a potential fundraising source for us to capture this heritage in a curated type of a museum artifact that can remain hopefully inside of Colorado Springs in the Pikes Peak region, or perhaps elsewhere inside the Air Force, the greater Air Force. Finally, as the Air Force, as the 310th goes away, we're trying to retain, our goal is to retain that heritage so that the next iteration of the 310th, be it as a bomb wing again, or perhaps as a cyber wing, or some other wing that has yet to come into existence. The heritage of what the men and women of the 310th Space Wing have done, your constituencies, can be leveraged and celebrated for future generations as a whole. So next slide, please. And then there you go. There's a Space Wing coming in March. And then one more slide, please. And then finally, I'm not asking for anything today. I guess I'm not the only one who's not asking for anything today. I thought I would be, but I'm not asking for anything today. But except that I am desperately in need of an honorary commander. The honorary commander program is out there to help the wing and the men and women of the Space Wing really connect with the government, with the local populace. We have been without one for probably almost a decade at this point, and given the what we have going on, I think it's time to rectify that wrong. So I would ask for your advocacy to help me search for an honorary commander. I don't have any potential leads. Roland over here, he would be a great one, but he doesn't meet the criteria. He's too short.
I was going to suggest Roland.
So the honorary commander cannot be a retired military member, cannot be a defense contractor. I know that rules out probably half of the Colorado Springs populace, but that's sort of the rules, and the rules are meant as a two-way street, right? It affords individuals as part of the community, as part of the local government, an opportunity to see behind the scenes about what goes on inside of in this case, a space wing, and one that's inactivating. So I look forward to potentially working with you in the very near future on both the honorary commander program, but also, and I welcome any support you might be able to provide and helping us to celebrate and retain this 110-year heritage as we move forward. So stand by for any questions, comments, concerns, or otherwise I'll just keep making quips about Mr. Rainey over there. I do have, I have a handful. If you go to the next slide, I think my contact information is on there as well, or maybe not. I guess not. I have a handful of business cards. I didn't grab quite enough, but I do have a handful to pass out.
Yes, I would like one.
Thank you.
Roland Rainey at large. The 310 Space Wing, your headquarters is Schriever Space Force Base, correct? But with 1,400 member citizen airmen, what are some of the other installations in the Colorado area that you have members assigned to?
Thank you for that question. So Schriever, as you mentioned, the preponderance of our formation is really at Schriever. I think there's 800 or so people assigned there. We also have people assigned to Peterson right here in Colorado Springs. Approximately another 100 or so at both Buckley up in Aurora and Vandenberg out on the central coast of California. But the preponderance of right here in the greater Colorado Springs area.
I'm a civilian, so I'm asking.
So you qualified as an honorary commander.
Miley Foster, El Paso County. So my understanding, what you're saying is these 1,400 people have jobs that were mission critical, and now those jobs, that mission is being moved somewhere else, or it's no longer needed.
So
I'm trying to understand why they're shutting it down.
So thank you for that. Congress Space Force made a play to rather have it. Let me back up. In the Air Force right now, you have an active component that's active duty, and then you have a reserve component that's composed of the Air Force Reserve Command and the Air National Guard. Those two have separate funding lines. They have separate appropriations. They have separate manpower and the like. Space Force, when they reorganized, they determined that they wanted to try to see if they can get some more efficiency by building a single component. So rather than you have the Air Force Reserve over here and the active duty Air Force over here doing different things, you've merged the two. So the jobs that currently reside inside of the 310 Space Wing aren't going away necessarily. They are being subsumed inside of the greater Space Force. Now, that said, each one of those 1,400 people, they have a decision to make. Do they want to go back into the active duty, into Space Force, rip off the brown name tags and put on blue, if you will? Or do they want to stay in the Air Force Reserve? If they decide to stay in the Air Force Reserve, they will likely move out of the region. And a lot of them have jobs, civilian jobs. I myself was a civilian up until a couple of months ago, working downtown. So they have civilian jobs here. So they would have to potentially commute to other positions inside the Air Force Reserve if they wanted to continue to serve the nation in that capacity. Anyone else? Okay, thank you again for your time. I really look forward to working with you in the very near future. And thanks again to my good friend Roland over here to help setting this up. So, thank you.
Thank you. If John liked the video, it was good. All right. Okay, any members with announcements, comments?
We do have a staff item. Jared, do you want to speak to this, or do you want me
Oh,
to?
I didn't know about that one. Sorry.
I'm happy to. I think Andy was gonna probably jump in as well. I think any of us could step in, but go ahead.
Good to see the committee in action again. I appreciate all the great stuff you're doing. Good afternoon, Andy Gunning with PPACG. Thank you for everything you're doing. The board appreciates that. It's great to see how the sausage is made and asking tough questions of our staff and CDOT and of the colonel and everybody else. It's a really great partnership, really great process. one thing I was asked to come and make a request of you guys, and no need to make any changes, but just wanted to see if your meeting day, meeting time works. And it was prompted by just sort of an informal inquiry we got. There's a regional opioid council that meets. That's a joint effort between El Paso County and Teller County. It's headed up by DA Michael Allen, bunch of community leaders, elected officials are on that body. They're trying to figure out how to spread out, how to spend, I think, $60 million roughly that's coming through a couple of different legal actions that were settled recently. Anyways, I guess they're looking for a new space to meet, and they meet the fourth Wednesday of each month from 2 to 5. It's hard to get the 20 of them aligned with their schedules and everything. So we were asked by Teller County Commissioner Eric Stone, who's one of my bosses. He's on the PPACG board. He said, hey, is there any possibility that there's space and a time and a day that works for them to meet over here? We've got a really busy space, and I kind of even hesitate to ask if this time and day works for you guys. I just heard, our Commission on Aging meets the third Wednesday of each month at the same time. This is a busy space. There's just a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot of different committees that we support throughout PPACG, but you don't know if you don't ask. I think you guys have had this date and time for a while, and you are locked in going forward, except for the changes we'll make for the holiday schedule. But just wanted to put it out there. If it works, I will go back to Commissioner Stone and say, sorry, you guys have to find another day or find another location. But like I said, you don't know if you don't ask. So just thought I'd put it out there.
Well, my question would be, is there a time that works best for staff with the room that you could suggest to us? I think most of us are flexible if we have notice and can look at it.
We haven't looked at too many other options, I don't think. I don't know if Danelle.
If you could send that out with the holiday thing and let people comment, I think that's something that would be good.
Yeah, and no pressure whatsoever. This seems to work really, really well. And it works with the flow of our work too, because we have the TAC, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee meets the week before. Things come to you guys and they go to the board 2 weeks later, the second Wednesday of each month. So I don't want to mess with that flow, quite honestly. But if there are ways to make some adjustments, that's kind of what we were looking at. But no pressure, but we'll include that in the survey and the poll that we send out. So yeah,
I think we all want to be team players. So it's whatever works.
Sure. Good. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Unless I'm speaking out of turn, anybody? Roland, you didn't hear that.
But I think you're saying that this week is a good week, but maybe a different day or a different time in the week. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure we can work something out.
Yeah, but like I said, no need to guarantee to find something. I think fourth Thursdays might be open, but you never know. So we'll take a look at what the schedule looks like, and we'll send out some options, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Good. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other surprises for me? Okay. Okay. Any member announcements, comments?
Roland Rainey at large, not necessarily a comment, but I want to go back to the safety target numbers. When is the next time do we believe that information is going to come before the CAC again?
We have to adopt that, if I remember correctly, by the end of January. So it will probably come back. So the way we did it, we wanted to make sure that the CDOT folks were able to come and provide the information to both our TAC and our CAC and our board. And the way that their availability fell is kind of split between months. So I think that item would probably come back in December, but I'm not. It's not set in stone. But if you have questions, if you'd like to send them to me, and if we don't know here as staff, we can certainly get some answers from CDOT as well.
No, I greatly appreciate that. Some of the comments that were made today, and I do believe there was a very valid point about spectrum of data. When you look at mass aggregate versus what is a very unique defined data spectrum on how you set those targets, I don't know if that could be narrowed down in that short of a time frame, but any type of data spectrum will be much appreciated.
We'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing we have on the it says meeting scheduled. Since we're discussing that, my question, do we need to vote on that?
We don't need to vote on that. I do have one quick member entity announcement though before we move on. Lisa is to my right here. Lisa is our new staff member in our transportation department. I don't know if any of you, she's been to CAC before. Laura was with us. Laura Cruz, she was our mobility coordinator. And she has unfortunately moved on to another position. But in her kind of place, we've kind of revamped that position a little bit. And Lisa is our new transit planner. So if you see her around, please be nice. And she's gonna be a great addition to our staff.
Glad to have you.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Lisa Gagnon. I'm from Massachusetts. I just moved here, so I'm learning so much, and I can't wait to learn more from everyone. Thank you.
Or entity.
Okay, anything else?
Remember entity announcements?
Announcements? Yes.
Is there anybody from League of Women Voters here today?
Look and see online. I am not seeing.
So I'm not a member of the League of Women Voters, but I wanted to let the committee know that the National League of Women Voters has appointed observers to the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, and the representative is a local person, Dr. Rebecca Theobald from University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. She's an assistant research professor in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies. And if you're interested in what's going on at COP29 from the 7th to the 17th of November, I can provide you with information to the blog that she'll be keeping on behalf of the National League of Women Voters.
Would you like to be contacted directly or coordinate through Danelle?
Either one.
Okay. Okay.
And you might notice there's a similarity in last name.
I kind of noticed that. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? I'm not seeing any. And we've meeting schedules down, so if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Had to get it done as quickly as we could.
Pretty good. I thought we might be here till 5 today. All the stuff we had on the agenda.
I'm not willing. I didn't say that.